I wish that I treated my sin like I treat a virus, avoiding it at all costs, making it so far away from me, not even wanting to be around it, being afraid of contracting it, thinking about what it could do to me if I come across it, if I touch it even, if I think about it, sometimes that feeling that comes with thinking about the virus. I wish I treated my sin this way. And why do I say that? Well, what does sin do to us? When I ask this question in the past, when I answer this question, even now, part of my answer is that sin makes us guilty. Colossians 2 will talk about how Jesus on the cross takes away this legal debt that stood against us and condemned us, nailing it to the cross. Yeah, sin makes us guilty. But Scripture says more than just that. Scripture says in John chapter 8, whoever sins is a slave to sin. Ephesians chapter 4, 17 to 24. If there was one passage I wanted our church to memorize, it would be this text. Sin corrupts and darkens our mind, ongoing, still happening when we sin. Sin wounds us. Psalm 41, verse 3. When Jesus describes sin and what it does to our ability to see things accurately, he says it's like a plank in our own eye. We cannot see clearly until we remove it. Sin blinds us, enslaves us, corrupts our minds. It brings about death. It deeply wounds the soul to such an extent that we're not able to fully understand or express just how real the problem is of sin in our life, the wounds that it has caused. I wish I treated my sin like I treat some sort of virus, avoiding it at all costs. If there's anything to be worried about, if there's anything to try to stay away from at all costs, it would be the thing that could actually harm you. And Jesus says, don't be afraid of those who can kill the body. Be afraid of the one who can throw body and soul into the fire. What does sin do to us? It corrupts us. It damages us. I grew up going to Maranatha Christian camp, not too far from here, in fact, and I went there 11 years in a row. And about the 4th grade, I had a bright idea, kind of a dark moment in my past. They gave us these glow sticks one dark night, and it was supposed to be some fun event, and I decided to disobey a little bit. They gave us the rule, don't put them in your mouth. You don't want to accidentally break this and swallow it. And lo and behold, 10-year-old, 11-year-old Andy puts this in his mouth. He bites down on it, not thinking that it's going to break open. And suddenly I felt all of this stuff rushing down my throat, and in a moment of panic, I swallowed it. I didn't spit it out. I went up to one of the directors and I said, hey, and before I could even finish describing it, they saw the glowing on my teeth, and you're not supposed to have a green glowing smile, so he figured out pretty quickly what had happened to me. I had broken the rule, but now there was something else. Was there some sort of wound? Was there some sort of sickness that was going to come from this? So they called the poison hotline, they called a bunch of things, and they basically found out, just flush it down with a bunch of water. You'll probably be fine in the morning. And I was fine in the morning after some interesting symptoms, and I'll just leave them at that. But see, I hadn't just broken the rule. I hadn't just gotten in trouble because I broke the rule. Something actually happened to me, physically harmful to me, because I swallowed something. See, the rule was in place to protect me from the damage that could come from it. I want to read from you a passage of Scripture from the book of Exodus, chapter 15, verse 26, if you're curious. This is after God has freed all the Israelites from Egypt, and after they sang this great song of thanksgiving to Him for freeing him. And one of the very first things He tells them, before He gives them all of these commandments, He tells them why He's going to give these commandments, why He has rules that if you break them, they would be considered sin. This is what he says in verse 26. If you will give earnest heed to the voice of the Lord your God, and do what is right in his sight, and give ear to his commandments, and keep all of his commandments, I will put none of the diseases from which I put on the Egyptians. For I, the Lord, am your healer. Church, this is what I want you to know. Ultimately, why God gives these rules is to protect the Israelites from the Egyptians, from the Egypt still in them. As many Christians have said before, and I'll repeat it, God rescued the Israelites from Egypt now. He needed to rescue the Israelites from the Egypt still in them. Or in other words, he rescued them out of Egypt. Now he needs to get the Egypt out of the Israelites. That's why these 613, or however many you want to count them as, rules are in place to protect them. And God tells us ultimately in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 that these stories in Exodus, these stories through all of the scriptures of the Old Testament, were written for our example. May I suggest to you that all of these rules that God has for us, that he wants us to follow, that he calls Christians to do, they're in place ultimately, not because God needs to impose some sort of power and get pleasure out of it, but because he wants to save us from the disease of the Egyptians. He wants to heal us from the damage that sin can cause us and already has caused us. Well, church, that's what I have for us today. I have one quick announcement for us. Amanda Millington has started some sort of a food drive. And that doesn't mean that she's taking donations for food, but she is receiving financial help. The church is helping her with this, and she's helping from her own pocket as well. But if you would like to help with distributing the food or putting it together, if you could contact me. She's at work at the hospital over the next couple of days, and we're going to be sending out some food to some families who really need it. And so this is a great way for you to get involved, a great way for you to be active during your quarantine time if you'd like to do that. So get a hold of me if that's something you're interested in, and have a blessed day, and may the Lord protect you.